Welcome to Warblog. Now this is the Zapatista Uprising, Mexico. It's not that often we get things from South America. I do sort of try and make an effort to find something from there, but I haven't really put in a lot of effort to find the battles and the wars, and I don't think there were that many. You know, for example, the Contras is such a big one, and I've got nothing from it. And because the thing is, I don't think they did. You know, it was never really big enough to constitute anything significant, etc., etc. But this one was quite interesting. Essentially, I don't really know the full ins and outs of it all, but they had their 1910 to 1919 revolution under Emiliano Zapatas, and they, part of that, established Article 27 of the Constitution regarding protective native communal landholdings under the NAFTA communal holdings. Now, I think the NAFTA agreement actually overrode that. So they basically, because that's just not right, I don't think. Let me have a look. Yeah, in response to the implementation of the NAFTA agreement. So that's wrong. So I shouldn't say that, but I wouldn't write about what I write. The point is, they take away Article 27, and the Chiapas rise up. This is their area, and they take a few villages, and they also essentially protest, because that's what these are, protesters. So they protest in the cities. Now there's 3 police in this, and they're not going to have much luck. They're busy protesting. The protestation mechanics are not that great. You know, I'm not sure what to do with that. For example, I don't know. I think it's still something that's under development, but I'm not going to develop it now. For example, I think what might make sense is if I allow them to cohabit in the same hex, so that you could move them into that hex, and then they would start to affect they would start to affect the victory points. Now there's 100 there, so it's 200. It's going to take forever. But the villages are only worth 2. So, and I'm not sure that they actually have the ability to actually affect these either. So I'm not sure how this is actually going to work. It's a bit like the other one. There's so many uncertainties. I'm not sure how it's going to work. So let's go into play mode. But they do take the villages, and they do actually end up engaging here in Altamirano. And they do, for that purpose, get a couple of irregulars on, one on turn 4 and one on turn 5, nearer to the point. So, I mean, in case you're not familiar with Warblog, essentially it is designed to allow you to play from inception through to uprising and war. And when I mean inception, these are just riots, or these are protests. These are protesters. So this is, I think, the genesis of modern war, in balance or in contrast to state war and a traditional war, conventional or synchronous warfare. In that this is asynchronous, and although the mechanics are not that great, I'm still trying to sort of get my head around them. It essentially allows you to understand how protests can lead to things, and then essentially you know, although there's no rules in here for that evolution, you want, after a certain amount of protests, you will then start to find that you get irregulars, and irregulars are essentially armed units, and they could be armed with anything, you know, but they're different from protesters, who are essentially protesting. Now, protesters have special rules against the police. They can actually fight the police, but they can't fight armed forces. So if you look down here in Comitan, which is not an objective, it's a major city, they've got some armed forces there. The protesters just wouldn't stand a chance. But they can fight the police. I think they have like a 0.2% or something like that. So that's sort of how that works. Now, I'm really not going to play this in earnest, but I think it's interesting. I think because of the way the rules work, I'm sort of thinking, well, how can I make this work? You know, how can we sort of, you know, take our protesters to San Cristobal de la Casa and, you know, cause a problem, barricade ourselves in and trash the town halls? How can we do that? I don't really know. As I said, I think the thing is, if you put units inside stacks, the chances are they get lost and you don't know where your units are. But for sake of, you know, what it is, I think it's good enough. You just have to sort of accept a slight distortion on the suspension of disbelief, because otherwise we'll have to battle our way in. We're not going to battle our way in, but let's get the drawing tool out. Firstly, they do take some villages, which the Mexican authorities have to take back. So there's one there, 2, 3, 4. Now I've put them randomly on the map. It just says villages. These are places where they go to the town halls and they create a major disturbance. They actually are involved with the armed police here. There's actual battles here later on, hence the 2 irregulars that appear on behalf of the EZLN. So what I'm sort of going to do, I think, is to sort of balance up sending protesters to the villages, so we can easily take that village and that village. We can easily take that village and that one, and then send the remains to remaining cities. So I'll do that to start with. So well, we can get into that village. Get in there. There. Yeah, we can't quite get there. But we've accounted for something in each village. Now that's going to take a long time to take. So we could double up on some of these. So 1 to 3. So we can attrition. So we can attrition the police. That might be the way to do it. Oh, look at that, we did some damage against the police there. And that's actually interesting, because that is, whatever it's called, Altamirano, which is where the action did take place. So we've done some damage against the police units there. we've got a large force of protesters down here. Oh, we did quite a lot of damage there as well, 0.4. I mean, you know, relatively speaking. So we've sort of broken some riot shields and some noses, I think. We haven't got anything against that yet. Okay. So what do the police want to do? Well, the thing is, they can move out of there, but that would leave it vulnerable. So really, they've got to stay there. Most of these places can protect themselves. We've got military units here, so I think we're going to use the military. The thing is, we really don't want to leave Comitan empty, but it's not an objective. So we can assume that there's so much going on there that it's not really viable. Although that's sort of unbelievable, really. The only reason I'm sort of choosing the ones that are objectives and not sort of just anything is because these were, you know, noted as objectives. These are places where the riots took place, and then there's 4 villages, etc. So we're competing against these villages now. So I'm going to assume that we're not going to take that because it's not an objective. Now let's see what sort of damage we can do here. 7 to 1, so we'll push them both back. So there was some violent... Well, to be quite honest, we should probably not be using violence at this stage. It depends on how you want to play it. So if you're sort of role playing a little more, one minute. I think essentially, we shouldn't really be able to use the military into a certain turn. I mean, maybe I shouldn't bring them on the board until later. But I put them there for a some sort of perspective, really. You know, because you do have some military units immediately available, but they're here, so they're not around here or anywhere else. So, you know, they can only be in one place at a time, but they are quite effective. So I think that, you know, that's quite an interesting perspective to put it on, really, but to sort of put it into, because you have to then decide where they're going to go and be effective, because everything else, especially these villages, are now unprotected. So maybe they could have gone up to this village to try and protect it. So the police, are we going to try and deal with these protesters? Two to 1, so we push them back. Okay, push them back. Now it's interesting here because we've got 3 police units and we've got 3 of these. So do we go 1 against 1 or 3 against 1 or what? I think we can do 1 against 1. Let's see how that works. Okay, so we push them back. So that was an exchange. And another exchange. And another exchange. And they don't get... So they've got depressions too. So that was some interesting... So here it's, you know, the newspapers are going to sort of say, you know, massive riots and the police are unable to control order in San Cristobal de la Casas, with police units disordered. Okay. So we've had Is that reinforcements? I think it is. We've had some reinforcements appear there. We can move into this village, and we've got. We haven't taken these places yet, but let's go and cause some trouble here. Look at that. I messed up with that. No, that was a shame. So, the civil disorder continues with more damage against the police units. 1.2, 1.2, 1.2. Oh, I know where he came from. He retreated from there. Yeah, that wasn't a reinforcement. There are reinforcements, and so I was wondering, really, whether they were only coming on the second turn. 0.4. So we're definitely damaging these units. Unsuccessful. That was a shame down there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to remove these armed forces back to here. We don't want to get the bad press until something bad happens, like we lose a police unit or a police unit is routed. Then we can start to use them. I think other than, so we've taken these two villages here now. That will free up those units. These protesters have now made riot defences, so they've got cars burning and piles of rubble in the streets. Let's see whether we can shift them. Let's send them all against one, because I think we'll get at least 2 attacks. Yep, so we push those ones back, and we should be able to push these ones back now. Yep, that's all their move. So we push them both back into there. Okay, so they're now depression 4. So we can push these guys back. Yes. And probably attack them both. A DR there. And a DE there. The rioters are taking a real pounding. And here, so one against him, one against each. No, in exchange. That was painful, because now we can't get one against each. At least we can get something against this guy. Yeah. So 0.4, 1.4. This is quite interesting, really. I certainly feel this is very sort of gamey. I think when a better balancing, this can be quite sort of a challenge, really, because you can definitely hit them. Okay, there's some Mexican military now coming in. I think we've got some reinforcements here, look. These have got to be reinforcements, they weren't there before. Right, let's get a full surround on this. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Oh, 1-to-1 and an exchange. Could have pushed them out. That was their big battle. That was where it happened. We got reinforcements here. Why do we want to send them all? Oh, I just don't know. Okay, so we've taken these two villages. We've done this one, haven't we? Yep. Let's see what we can do here. Let's do an attrition. Will it be a 1-to-1 or 1-to-2? No, so that's unsuccessful. An attrition. Unsuccessful. Attrition here. Unsuccessful. They need to get some successful results in to really amount to anything really. Unsuccessful. Everything was unsuccessful. Okay. Right, well, the Mexicans have now got... Oh, look at that, they got lost. They got lost in the jungle, look at that. Oh dear, I didn't do that on purpose. We should be able to start getting some defender eliminated now. Yeah, unit eliminated. So these rioters are basically destroyed. Let's see what we can do here. There's a DR. And a DE. So the police are really, holding their ground really. I mean, they are protesters. So what more do you expect? I'm going to use 2. So we eliminated that. That's good. And routed that one. Oh, an exchange. Okay. It's quite dynamic. It's quite interesting. I'm not going to play much longer because I've got things to do, but reinforcements. 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 I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to sort of spend too much time. But that looks pretty sort of interesting, actually. I think I'm gonna give them a few more protesters to make it, really make it look interesting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap some police over in there and put this military unit on turn 6 or something. It's not going to be an objective, but I think I think you should be able to use the the military units as required, and not sort of force self-discipline on that issue. So I'll put them on turn 6. But I think with a few more police units, with a few more protesters, especially sort of randomly appearing, sort of in odd places, so you have to determine where they go. You could really sort of possibly achieve some results. But I think it's quite clear that once the military get involved, there's not going to be any two ways about it. But further, they will get their irregulars on around here at some point, and that will have a little effect because they will be quite powerful, possibly pushing the police out, but they won't be able to. I think it'll be a fine balance, but I think at the end of the day, the Mexican authorities will win. But it'd be interesting to see how long it takes them to do that, and how much the protesters can achieve, before that. And that will be the success of that will be sort of the measure of success in this scenario, I think. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Remember, if you want to play either on by yourself with a friend, print and play, you just sign up and you can do all of that. And I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.